everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from smoky Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, we did an interview with somebody.
Yeah.
This is part of our ongoing discussion about atheists in politics, and we actually found an atheist politician to talk to.
Yeah.
So we have him on the show in the second half. It's great, really nice interview.
Yeah,
So-
he's gonna inspire and make you all feel excited about the political process, and in the meantime, ruin his own political career by appearing on our show.
And if you're local, you may know the name. Actually, you might know the name if you pay attention to certain issues, even outside of the state of Utah. He's a man by the name of Derek Kitchen. So
Yeah.
he'll be coming on, and he's a state senator here in Utah. So
Yes, indeed.
pretty cool. Dan,
Yeah.
I fucking love this story. So, the headline caught my attention, but actually, if I can't read the headline because it gives away just a wonderful punchline. So over in China, apparently they've been editing the Bible. I guess you could say officially the Chinese Communist Party is they don't like the Bible as is, right? And so
Why would they? I've read a lot of the thing. I think it's a terrible book.
Well, actually, I mean, here's the thing about the Chinese Communist Party and sort of religion, which is, aside from the way that they treat religious people, I mean, they're not wrong about the Bible being shitty, and they're not wrong in their basic atheism. It's just how they go about a lot of the stuff. Actually, almost everything that has to do with religion is a fucking nightmare in China. And so anyway, but apparently for some reason, and I don't know why this would be necessary, but there's a textbook entitled Professional Ethics and the Law.
Oh.
And for whatever reason, they felt the need to quote a story from the New Testament, right?
Okay.
Which just seems like surely there are other places to look in this world for stories about ethics. But they take the story of Jesus and the woman caught in adultery, or Jesus and the woman taken in adultery.
Sure.
That story, right? This is where the famous line of "Let he who is without sin be the first to cast the stone," or something along those lines. And he says this in the context of what is it? A group of Pharisees or whatever, right? Scribes and Pharisees,
and a big angry
brought
mob.
This woman. They interrupt Jesus while he's teaching, and they bring in a woman who's been accused of committing adultery, right?
Yeah.
Saying that she was caught in the very act, and they basically ask Jesus, about the Mosaic law of,
You're supposed to kill her.
stoning her to death, right?
Yeah.
That's what you should do.
That's the correct thing to
That
do,
is
obviously.
the right answer, right?
Yeah.
And so they go through this whole story, and he says the whole line, the person who's without sin should throw the first stone, and then the Pharisees, they sort of wither away, and then he says to the woman, in the Bible, he says, "Neither do I condemn you, go, and from now on sin no more." Or something along those lines, depending on which version of the Bible you're reading.
Right.
But instead, this textbook has changed the outcome to say, when everyone left, Jesus stoned the woman to death himself, saying, "I am also a sinner, but if the law could only be enforced by men without blemish, the law would be dead."
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Wow.
And then there's a question, because it's a textbook. There has to be a question about this, this story with a lesson that you just learned. It says, through this short story, how do you view the law? How
Wow.
ominous. How ominous.
Yeah.
There's only one correct answer.
You better get it right.
You better follow
in
the
China.
fucking law. There's no,
Wow.
the higher ups. There's no shaming the higher ups by calling them out for hypocrisy. This
No.
is the lesson, right? That they're teaching is
Right.
don't call us out for hypocrisy. You know the law. You better follow it because we don't care about the hypocrisy. We'll still punish you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so, oh my God.
Which is actually the right lesson for anybody who's living under any sort of law. The people who are administering that law are not blameless and are not faultless. They'll still throw you in jail. Oh my God,
Right,
Jesus!
it's a story that's
the
supposed
image
to be about compassion and forgiveness and blah 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 blah. Which, of course,
Sure.
just some rando like Jesus. Who is he to like? This is the Chinese Communist Party,
right?
Their perspective. Like, who is he to just like forgive somebody?
I
Fuck
just
no.
love the image so much of everybody being like, "Oh shit, he's right," and they all leave, and he's like, "Also, just boom, take that." Ha!
Oh, well, needless to say, Christians are outraged in this country and around the world. But there's, what can they do?
Yeah, well,
there's
there's
nothing that they can do.
I'm gonna release that version of the Bible.
The Chinese version, the official Chinese state version of the Bible.
Well, here's the thing. Read the rest of your book. You can't be that outraged about it. The book itself is chock full of stuff that's crazy and immoral and stuff. Just because your favorite chapter and verse doesn't happen to be quite as immoral as the rest of the book. And then somebody turns around and sort of brings it in line with the rest of the book. Yeah, I think you need to cool your jets a little bit. All right. Well, I'm going to take us to New York, where I don't know if you've heard of this. There's this global pandemic we've got on right now that we still have.
I don't know, Dan. I haven't left my house in like 9 months. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Exactly.
What's going on outside my house?
Look, you and I do not live in New Zealand. We live in a country that has COVID. And in many parts of this country, it's on the rise, including our own,
including
lovely
right
little,
here. Yeah,
little neck of the woods.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
our
it's
hospitals.
great.
We're at the point in like the wave where now our hospitals are starting to fill up. Dan, did you see that news story?
I think that's so great. What a fantastic little place we live in. So yes, we it's a shitty time, and one of the places where also cases are going up is New York. And here's the thing. They worked really hard to get him down. It's particularly difficult because it's just so high density living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's also particularly difficult when specific groups choose to ignore the safety mandates. And one of those groups seems to have been Orthodox Jews. So the mayor of New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio, and Governor Andrew Cuomo of the state of New York have decided to shut down schools in 9 zip codes in Brooklyn and Queens, which happen to be places where a large number of Orthodox Jews live and send their kids to their yeshivas.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of look, they have not handled the whole Jew thing very well, these guys. If you'll recall, I think we talked about it back in April, I think. De Blasio got in a big problem after he ordered the shutdown of a funeral for a Hasidic rabbi, and basically drew a lot of criticism because he wasn't specific enough in his targeting. He was basically like, all these Orthodox Jews, they really need to get their act together. And it was just like, whoa, this was one group of people. You can't just call out everybody associated with them. Well, they're in hot water again now, because even though this is a problematic community that has been like not wearing masks properly and you know, flouting the rules, Cuomo apparently displayed large images of unmasked Jews gathering in places using images from not this time. So like a photograph, for instance, from 2006 was one of the ones that he used to illustrate the problem. So just not a lot of sense being employed on any part.
They didn't have a mask on.
Yeah, look
Did they
at them.
have a mask on? No.
Look at how many unmasked the
Orthodox Jews there are. Nobody's wearing a mask.
So,
that's amazing.
There you go. So let's just say that this is a tricky problem. It is one that I don't know if you've heard has hit some important people in our country. But yeah, it could be handled better.
Yeah. Yep. Dan.
Yeah.
Last week on the show, we talked about how the police in Moscow, Idaho, arrested some people after they sort of resisted, and the police, when they were asked to put masks on at a public event, right? It was this religious group, this church group that was out there.
They were singing.
They were singing, open air, no masks on, and the city decided that they were going to enforce it.
To crack down.
And or enforce the mask mandate, right?
Yeah.
And so a couple of people got arrested. It wasn't because they were like out there, you know, being all churchy, which is how it's being spun. It was because they weren't wearing masks. Okay.
It's because there were rules and they were breaking them.
And they were breaking them. Right. Well, that little story broke big this week. And it got spread all around, right? And so the one of the main groups to really spread it was the Young Americans for Liberty, which is a student activism organization thing.
Doesn't sound good. I'm just going to say I would normally like liberty, and I like young people, but that doesn't sound like it's a thing that I'm going to enjoy.
So they said, if you would have, whoever posted it says, if you would have told me in 2019 that we were just 1 year away from Americans being arrested for holding outdoor church services, I would have thought you to be insane. Well, this gets picked up by Donald Trump, who then retweets it without probably even watching the video. And he says, Dems want to shut your churches down permanently. Hope you see what is happening. Vote now. Right?
Yeah.
And that's his whole thing. It's just like, vote now. Vote. Exclamation point.
Vote now and vote often is his kind of thing.
Yeah. So, like I said before, not because of the fucking, like the fact that they were Christians. It was all because of the masks. Like, but this is, they're just running with it. And so then Eric Trump decided that he needed to he was on the radio in North Dakota, right?
They shouldn't let him do that.
I know.
He's
definitely
the
not
dumb
Eric
one.
Trump. And so he says that he was kind of asked to list off some of his father's accomplishments. And he says that his father has literally saved Christianity in the U.S. and he falsely, of course, claimed that Democrats want to attack, Christianity,
right?
And he's talking about like this war on faith, and he says, I mean, the Democratic Party, the far left, has become the party of quote unquote atheists.
Wow.
They're totally fine keeping liquor stores open, but they want to close churches all over the country, right? And so this thing, it's so stupid, right? Like, Like, it's just the dumbest possible attack. No, who can possibly like? Here's the thing, right? Like who actually believes this shit aside from like a few crazies deep in their base?
Oh no, there's so many right-wing people want to paint the left as just being this atheist hellscape. You know,
they try,
completely disregarding that big atheist Joe Biden that we just nominated to be the candidate
that
for
Catholic
president.
atheist.
Yeah. It's they're the nice thing about the position that the right has put themselves in currently is that they don't have to agree with themselves about anything. Yeah. They get to just say anything they want, contradict it 10 minutes later, and nobody gets to call them on it. It's just they just get to slide on everything. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's unreal.
Oh, my last story was about New York. I'm going to stay in the state of New York, where one of the largest Catholic dioceses in the country exists. This is the Diocese of Rockville Center. And they, I don't know if you know this, but every now and then, and it's very, very rare, it seems to have almost never happened, the Catholic Church has apparently had a bit of a trouble with priests raping children.
Oh, yeah?
So that story broke. I don't know if you caught it. It was kind of a big deal.
Wait. Priests raping children?
Yeah, I know you're shocked to hear about it.
I mean,
nobody's heard of such a thing.
It's like the last person I would expect.
Right? Weird. Here's the thing. New York. You remember we talked about this last year, but New York actually opened it up such that they canceled the statute of limitations for those crimes for a year. They basically said you've got 1 year. Go ahead and file charges, even if it goes all the way back. Even if you're 80 years old and you were raped.
Right.
So long ago. Anyway, a few people took them up on it. So this particular Catholic diocese has been so inundated with new new allegations and new lawsuits that literally they are filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
Unbelievable.
They have already paid out more than $62 million in restitution to sex abuse survivors. That's split between approximately 350 survivors. So it's not like anybody's getting wealthy off of this thing. That's under $200,000 per person.
Yeah,
but
it's a chunk of change, though, and mainly, right. What's important here is that the Catholic Church is being held accountable,
right,
for their for not holding these priests accountable.
Right, and for not, yeah, exactly,
right,
and for not protecting the children that were in their charge.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, so because of COVID, the sort of amnesty or the delaying or removing of the statute of limitations was extended in August all the way to mid-January. And so there are enough people still coming forward that yes, the diocese has declared bankruptcy, which is not awesome. I mean, it's great that the diocese is being destroyed by this, because fuck them. I don't give a fuck about them. But that means that a bunch of the new victims that are coming forward may well get they probably won't get a jury trial, and they will probably get even less money in damages. So that kind of sucks. But just get abused by a less abusey diocese if you want to get your money.
That's the takeaway.
That's a bad takeaway. Don't do
a terrible takeaway.
Yeah, no, but God. It does suck. I feel really, I feel for all of these victims. There's still, one lawyer represents apparently 73 victims, and is saying what's to become of them.
Right.
Why now that the church is deciding not to.
They shouldn't be allowed to.
Seeking
they should
protection.
Legitimate, because this doesn't. So when you go bankrupt, it doesn't mean that you're out of money and you're now insolvent and you shut your doors and go away, right?
Right.
And sell off all your goods, right? It means you're protected, right? I mean, it's in the phrasing of the whole thing. You're like, now you get to be restructured and pay off and write off a lot of debts and whatnot, right? Like,
this wasn't that they made bad choices with their corporate, with how they handled their corporation.
Right.
This is criminal behavior they're being held accountable for.
They should not be allowed to go into bankruptcy over that. They should have to sell stuff off. They should literally have to dissolve their organization. Like that is the punishment. That is what should happen.
Yeah. Exactly.
God. That made me mad, Dan.
Well, it made me mad too.
Yep. All right.
But you still have to do your next thing. So
yeah, I do. I'll get through it. Dan, so this is a drum I've been beating a little bit, and I apologize, everybody, but it's just something fascinating to watch, which is how the Mormon population has sort of it responds to Donald Trump, right? And specifically, what a group of them is trying to do this election by trying to bring as many more members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints over to the Biden camp and to vote for Joe Biden, right?
Right.
And they are impressing me more and more, right? With sort of their ability to get their message out, and the fact that they are now, the way they got headlines this week is that they have just launched a list online that where people have signed on, other Mormons are signing on basically a letter, right, that's posted online on this website, talking about their support of Biden, why they support Biden, and the sort of the threats that Trump poses to the nation and whatnot. And I'm just like, rock on, people. Like, I love this. They've gotten some fairly high profile names. They have somebody Jim Bennett. He's signed on to it now.
Son
granted,
of former
Republican Senator Bob Bennett.
Yep.
And also the grandson of a senator, another senator, Wallace Bennett. I didn't know that one. But then they have like a Pulitzer Prize winning historian by the name of Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. They have a New York Times bestselling author named Shannon Hale. I
went to high school with her.
Oh, seriously. They also have some Democratic politicians who are Mormon here in Salt Lake, in the Valley, who've signed on. And
nice.
And it's like they're really trying their hardest to give permission to Mormons to just not vote for Trump and to vote for a Democrat, which is so difficult. I don't know why it has to be so fucking difficult. I'm a registered fucking Republican, much to my chagrin.
But that's just a trick.
It's only so I can vote in primaries. It has nothing to do with my actual political beliefs. But nonetheless, this is about, and they keep beating this drum. They keep beating this drum, which is that there are 200,000 Mormons in Florida, roughly. And there are roughly 200,000 in Arizona. And they're like, if we can get a 15-point shift amongst that population for Biden. They're saying that that would be a margin of 60,000 votes, and
it could make
that's
a difference.
over half of what Florida was decided by in 2016. Right.
Yeah.
So they are doing their best, and I have to take my hat off to them for rallying so hard. And of course, nobody sees Utah flipping, but Trump is ahead, according to this, only by 10 points in Utah. Does that
Which
sound
is
right?
decisive? Yeah.
So,
that's what I've been seeing. Which still is a big win, but like that's not minuscule.
That is not the
margin
win he should be getting in the state of Utah.
No,
not as a Republican running for president.
Nope,
wow.
Absolutely not.
Or running for
so
re-election.
hooray for that. Hey, speaking of that fella Trump.
Oh,
he's Typhoid Mary, man. That dude is patient fucking zero.
It's unreal.
And he's got the COVID.
Yep.
And everybody that's ever come in contact with him seems to be dropping like flies.
Did you,
including a bunch of religious leaders? What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, did you see the whole thing about the isolation cart in the West Wing? That like there's instructions on like if you have a meeting with the president, this is what you do. Right. And it includes putting on like hospital gowns and respirators and like all this stuff. And it's like, if you get within 6 feet of him, you have to take off all of your clothes basically and just burn them. Like unbelievable, because he's holding meetings. He's calling his staff into the Oval Office as the horrible infectious person. Anyway.
Oh my God. So before that, though, like the super spreader event we now seem to know was the White House Rose Garden ceremony in which they announced Amy Coney Barrett as the Supreme Court nominee. Well, in attendance were a bunch of religious people who we know that God is protecting all of them, so they should be safe, right? Like that's
what I heard.
That's their entire contention, right? But unfortunately, Reverend John Jenkins, who's the president of Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame, and Pastor Greg Laurie of Harvest Christian Fellowship in Riverside, California, they all got it.
Oh, God.
They done got the COVID.
I love it.
Now, it's not just them. Other pastors who weren't in attendance at the Rose Garden but have been to plenty of other Trump events have gotten it, including John Hagee,
really?
Senior pastor of Cornerstone Church in San Antonio. He got it. His son made the announcement repeatedly called his own father Pastor Hagee, which I thought was very, very strange.
Yeah,
but he announced that Pastor Hagee had gotten it. Now Hagee wasn't at the Rose Garden event, but was fairly recently at another Trump event. I can't remember what it was. I'm not finding it. Anyway, this is also the guy, let's not forget, Pastor Hagee, who said that atheism never healed a disease. At one point, he said that, which, guess what, also never healed a disease? Your thing. This is also the guy that, said that Hurricane Katrina was a judgment because of gay pride parades. And, he's a real piece of shit. And I am experiencing what I will call epicaricacy, which I don't know if you know that word, but is the English version of Schadenfreude, because fuck all of them. I'm glad they all got it. I hope a few of them get really, really sick and feel terrible. Epicaricacy.
Epicaricacy. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Got a lot of C's in it.
Epicaricacy.
Yeah.
That's a nice word. I didn't know we had that word.
I didn't either. It's considered archaic and rare, but I learned it recently and
you bring it back.
I feel it frequently, so I'm going to. Although
that might be the name of this episode, Dan.
Epicaricacy? Yeah, I like it. It is very rare that the English word for something is more of a mouthful than the German word for the thing. And
That's
Schadenfreude is no small thing to wrap your mouth around, but epicaricacy is a big deal.
Indeed.
Anyway, listen, if you are experiencing epicaricacy or would like to shame us for ours, feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
You suggested this video, and it's really somebody I'd prefer not to play. I'm just going to say that.
It will be audio for our audience so that they don't have to look at her. But yeah, this is Michelle Bachmann.
Oh, she's just the worst.
We thought we had gotten rid of her when she was no longer a senator from the great state of Minnesota, but
nope,
she's back.
Oh yeah,
and she's got shit to say. And let me tell you something. She is narrow focused. Her focus is narrow. I'm just going to say, she has a sense of what's wrong with our country and specifically with her state of Minnesota. And she wants to talk about it. So let's let her.
What has changed in the last decade, though, that you would say that you've seen there that's made such a significant impact on the culture?
I would say probably the main thing is, as would be true anywhere else, a loss of reverence for God and of the things of God, and a loss of reverence for his word and the truth of his word, and turning away from the truths of his words to our own ways. And that brings us to a place of emptiness, ultimately sorrow and sadness. And I think that's happened here in Minnesota as well. Also, the embrace of false gods. Because the first commandment is very important. And again, this is not to be legalistic. These are the laws that God gave to Moses for our good, not for legalism, to say that I am the Lord thy God. You know, thou will have no other gods before me. I'm the God that brought you out of Egypt. Yeah. And so what God is saying is that we are to worship him and him alone, to know who he is, his attributes and his strengths. And in Minnesota, I think that there's been a turning away from that. Even from mainline churches, even from other churches where we don't necessarily revere the truth of his word. And instead, many people have come to the Minnesota area that are not believers of the book. They're not Jewish or not Christian. That's not to say that God doesn't love all people. He does. Right. But when people embrace false gods, that brings an element into your society. And, 30 years ago, we could say that there are false gods and that we shouldn't worship them. Today, it seems like we're not allowed to say that because that's considered not inclusive or not diverse enough. Right. But the fact is, the Word of God says that there's only one God to whom we serve. And there are false gods now here in the state of Minnesota.
I mean, this is a problem, Dan, in a lot of places. Like, we're seeing a lot of people move in from California, right, here in Utah. Like it's these newcomers, Dan, with their different ways,
with their false gods. It's not the Californians that she's referencing. You'll notice that she did a list of people of the book and said Jewish and Christian, and then seems to have stopped short of one of the people of the book.
The third one.
The third one, because she's totally 100% referencing Muslims, and she rejects look. They believe in the same God as you dumb person. It's the same fucking God.
Allah
they
isn't
just add
a name.
one. No,
it's
just God.
It's just God.
They believe in Moses, same as you. They believe in Abraham, same as you. They just add a little bit of color and flavor to your same gumbo. So but she is just mad as hell about their false god. Yeah. What I like is she can't paint us with that. I mean, as much as she wants to, we don't worship a false god.
Yeah, we do, Dan.
She's got to be happy
You
about
can come
us.
up with like false gods don't have to be like an actual god. You know, she could make something up about how we, you know, worship science. You know, or
Yeah,
something.
I'm sure she would say something like
Yeah.
that. But the fact of the matter is, I got no gods, so
On you.
you're
There you go, Michelle.
you're a lot more likely to be worshiping a false god than I am. So, you know, if we're just going by what are the odds, it's on you. Well, we had some folks write into us. Let me just let's see. Melanie wrote into us first. Hi, friends. She starts. I started listening in January when I caught up on the How to Heretic. I started at the very beginning, and when the pandemic hit, this podcast was an incredible source of comfort. I was reminded of horrible things we've already successfully weathered, and we came out okay. So it helps me believe that we can weather the rough things we're going through now. I'm on episode 410, so I'm closing in on catching up. Yeah, you're getting there. It's always a bafflement to us when someone actually goes through the whole back catalog, but go get them, Tiger. Anyway, she says, here's my question. I live in Central Orem in Utah Valley.
Oh.
The Mormonest place in the world.
Yeah.
I don't like to look like a Mormon. I like people to recognize on sight that I'm not a Mormon. This is easy to do in the summer with some décolletage and porn shoulders. That's, for those of you who don't know, that's just shoulders, but they're not covered by cloth. So in Mormon terms, yeah. But it gets difficult in the cold. I'm wondering if I should start wearing an enormous cross necklace just to separate me from the momos. Any ideas? Thanks for all the hard work, Melanie.
You just carry around a Starbucks wherever you go.
Right?
That
Or
works.
how do you feel about face tattoos? That would definitely do it.
That would help. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know about the cross. That feels like it sends the wrong message.
Yeah, I feel like couldn't this just be achieved with a color palette, right? Like don't like
Yeah.
like Mormons
Yeah,
tend to
very-
like just go really dark. Just dress all in black. They're not going to go for that at all.
A lot of black,
Yeah.
a lot of like scarlet red sort of thing. They're not gonna be into.
More eye makeup maybe than you would normally
Yeah.
expect. I think that might like really go smoky eye, like really smoky eye, right?
I like that. Yeah, it's tricky in the wintertime. How about this? Just say fuck a lot. That'll do it. That'll solve the problem.
There you go.
This is from Michael from Michigan, who says, "Hey, Frank and Dan, the podcast's recent call to action gave me good reason to contact you about a website I've been working on for the past month and a half or so. www.ballotdropoffbox.com.
Oh.
I was laid off due to COVID, so in order to teach myself a new skill and give back to my fellow Americans, I created a website that will allow the user to input their state, county, and or jurisdiction, and it will tell you where you can drop off your ballot so that you don't have to mail it.
Look at that.
Every location on the website is accompanied by a source to the government website, news article, or other reliable publication.
Yeah. Where's Utah?
I think that's great. Yeah, he said, little did I know that when undertaking this project, the publicity would be the most difficult part. So yes, we're happy to signal boost you. I went and checked it out. It's pretty easy. Michael points out, he says, I have not finished collecting all the data for every state yet, but I have completed most swing states.
Okay, yeah.
And plan to do the rest in the coming weeks. I just hope I'm not too late.
I'm looking at it right now. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well
so
done, man.
ballotdropoffbox.com. Go ahead and check it out if you are looking for a place to drop off your ballot and don't want to trust the U.S. mail, which might not be a bad idea. I know I am not going to trust the U.S. mail for this particular round of voting.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. Well done.
So well done, Michael. Hi, Frank and Dan. This is from Katie. I'm responding to your call to action in a recent episode about running for elected office.
Nice.
I'm in Denver, and as of a cursory look at the requirements for candidacy, city council, but open to whatever is most attainable, I believe I qualify. I'd love to get some support from you guys and your network of mentors on the process.
Nice.
Thanks for all you do and for finally giving me the guts to take the next step in a pipe dream I've had for years.
Fantastic.
So, Katie, I did write back to you, but we don't have the wheels are in motion, but we don't have everything up and running just yet.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would say just check on the website. Maybe check back on the website if it's not like perfect yet and doesn't have all the resources that we're hoping to get up there very soon. But in the meantime, there should be a way for you to just be able to sign up for us to be able to get back in touch with you as things get sort of added onto the website. That's kind of where we're working right now. Is like, okay, well, obviously people are very interested. Let's collect up the people who might want to hear back from us on this topic. So just check it out on the website.
Yep. All right. I'm going to start us off. We had one-time contributor, Will.
Nice.
Gave us a one-time donation. So you, Will, are now a deacon in the Aaronic priesthood. Congratulations for that.
Absolutely.
And do you have some people you want to tell us about?
I do for sure. There are 2 new patrons on Patreon. These people went to thankgodimatheist.com and clicked on the support tab. There is a new deacon by the name of Jill. Jill, you're going to be passing out that sacrament just as soon as can be. And then we have a new teacher by the name of Brad, and he's going to be up there setting up the sacrament. So,
the Lord love you both. Thank you so much.
Mormon priesthood. All right, and then as always, Dan, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis.
Well, Frank.
Yeah.
Look, we started a conversation that maybe we shouldn't have. We've gotten ourselves into some hot water because it's going to require us. Dan. I know it's going to require us to do some stuff, and I think we're committed to it. So here's the deal: we have talked in past few episodes about wanting to get atheists and humanists, nuns, people of our
non-believers, right?
The non-believers
committed to secularism.
Indeed, to run for office. We're talking mostly in these United States, but for our international listeners, we want to encourage that as well. It's less of an issue in a lot of foreign countries, foreign to us. However, you and I, Frank, have never run for office. We don't know anything about it. So we brought on somebody who does.
Yeah.
So isn't that a good idea?
No, we're doing something, Dan.
I know. We're gonna keep doing it. So, welcome to the show, Derek Kitchen.
Hi, great to be here.
Thank you. So, you guys living at home, listening at home, that is, Derek is a Utah State Senator here in the great state of Utah. As well, he's a former member of the Salt Lake City Council, and kind of, if you've heard the name Kitchen, you may have heard it sort of around the country, because at one point that name was on a lawsuit against our Governor Gary Herbert and that went all the way to the Supreme Court. Derek, why don't you tell us quickly just about that endeavor?
Sure, and thanks to the both of you for inviting me on. I'm really excited to be here today, and I look forward to the conversation. And to the listeners, of course, thanks for engaging in this really exciting topic, especially in this day and age when we need more and more people than ever to get engaged in politics. So I'm excited about this dialogue. As you mentioned, I was involved in a lawsuit that was known as Kitchen versus Herbert. Me being Derek Kitchen and Herbert being the governor of the state of Utah. This was a lawsuit that was filed back in 2013, and in it I took the state of Utah to court, in federal court, and challenged Utah's state constitutional ban on gay marriage, which I ultimately prevailed in challenging and overturned marriage bans in 5 Western states known as the 10th Circuit Court, the 10th Circuit, which is Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Oklahoma, New Mexico. And so, that's sort of the long and the short of it.
It was an amazing time. Can I be honest with you? I did not expect much to come out of that particular lawsuit, and it just kept advancing. And then comes the verdict, and you kind of caught the state with its pants down, in that they had forgotten to file a stay, or so, no wait,
a stay.
Somehow you made it so that every gay couple in Utah could get married like right then, like.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I mean, because that was 4 days before Christmas in 2013, and so that opened up the floodgates. Just a few days before the holiday, and about 1,700 people got married in that short window. And you're right, the state of Utah was caught with its pants down. They went to court and argued in defense of the marriage ban, and sort of had this hubris to them to the point where they didn't feel like they had to go through all of the traditional nuts and bolts of defending their law. So they never filed a stay, assuming that they would naturally be the victors in the case. But it turns out with our judge, we made a really compelling argument, and he found, and it was upheld by the 10th Circuit and the Supreme Court, that Utah had violated our constitutional rights by preventing myself and my partner at the time from marrying.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment. It was a crazy time. I was actually in Canada when that initial verdict came down. And I kept seeing on Facebook, everybody was like, go get married. Everybody, you can go get married. And I was like, no, you can't. You guys you've misunderstood something, because this is Utah and you're gay and there's no way you can? Yeah. It was shocking and awesome and amazing. So from there, suddenly your name had some notoriety, which I think is awesome. And you decided that this was not where your activism was going to stop, that you were going to be civically engaged, and you ran for city council. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like, what it felt like to be a candidate for the first time. What craziness went through your mind? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I ask myself that same question sometimes, Dan. Okay, so the lawsuit itself went on for about 18 months. The appeal process took a year and a half or so. Right. Once that was all said and done, I stepped back and started to plan a wedding, and got back to regular life to some degree. But I'll tell you what, man, getting involved as an activist or in any way really, but getting involved in the lawsuit itself and being successful there and seeing how my effort there made a positive impact, not only for my life and the people that I know and love, my friends and other LGBTQ members here in the community, but it also positively impacted complete strangers as well. Other gay, lesbian, trans people from around the state and around the country that were all of a sudden allowed to marry and be treated equally under the law, but also hopefully empowered themselves to step up and to participate in meaningful ways in our civic life, and to know that your voice and your effort can actually be fruitful. I'll tell you what, that experience is, I don't know if addictive is the right word, but it definitely made me feel empowered in a way that I wanted to keep doing more of it, right?
I love it.
So there was an opening on the Salt Lake City Council, and I'm also a business owner, and I am pretty closely engaged with the Chamber of Commerce and other small business enterprises, and in my district, I got a lot of encouragement from not only the activists on social justice movements, but the business owners that were saying, "Hey, man, you got to jump in this race. We need somebody like you in politics." And so I had a lot of encouragement, a lot of name recognition, and thought, you know what? Why not? Let's run. Let's throw my hat in the ring and see where this goes. And I ultimately prevailed in that endeavor of running for city council and became the youngest city council member on Salt Lake City's council. About halfway through my first term, we had a few new elected officials join the council, and at one point for about 2 years, half of Salt Lake City's local government was a member of the LGBTQ community. So we had 3 council members and our mayor that, out of 8 elected officials, 4 of them were LGBTQ. And I think that that's kind of a badge of honor for a place like Salt Lake City, So if you're not from Utah, if you're not from Salt Lake, you may presuppose that, we're this, religious sort of place, obviously with the headquarters of the LDS faith here and just sort of our reputation. But it was, it's nice to see that we have a really forward-thinking local government, and that the electorate at large is eager to support folks from the minority groups in local government, and sort of look past our identities as members of the LGBTQ community and vote for us based on our merits and our qualifications. So at any rate, I really enjoyed my tenure on the city council. I was elected in 2015 and joined leadership. I was the chair of our city's redevelopment authority, which taught me a lot about land development and building neighborhoods and working with communities to change the trajectory of their neighborhoods. And so I really enjoyed my time at the local governmental level, and we could dive into the dirty details there as well in a minute if you'd like. But yeah, and then in 2018, after serving a term in the city council, I once again was presented with a really unique opportunity in a vacancy at the state legislative level, where there was an opening in the Senate district that I lived in. And so I received, once again, a number of phone calls and a lot of encouragement from my friends and family and other community members to run for the Utah State Senate. And so in 2018, I launched that campaign. It was a very competitive race, but in November of that year, I prevailed in my effort and became one of 6 Democrats elected to the Utah State Senate.
Yeah, it's it's lonely up there on Capitol Hill with being a Democrat in Utah. So tell us. Here's one of the things that fascinates me is the idea of, and you like you said, you did have some name recognition. You had some people around the the business community who knew you. How would a person who wants to get engaged, wants to be involved, maybe wants to run for office themselves, what would you say are the building blocks for that? How do they start to make the connections that they need to make? What does a good candidate look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And just to take it head on, what does a good candidate look like? It's a regular person from the community who wants to step into a leadership role and has a vision or an idea of what government should look like, how it should operate, and what issues need to be discussed by your representatives. And so that could be anybody. Anybody can be a good candidate. I would say that if you're interested in getting involved in politics, it's important to start getting involved as much as possible right now. And that might look like showing up at community council meetings, neighborhood council meetings. It might look like working with your county assessor and trying to understand issues with regard to property tax valuation. And there's all kinds of unique ways that you can sort of inch your way into the operation of local government. But you really got to start educating yourself, and you do that by just diving in feet first. And so I think it's important to, like you mentioned, I had a little bit of name ID, and that helps, of course. But man, I'll tell you, a lot of politicians get into this game without ever having made a name for themselves before.
Right.
And so the way you do that is by constantly engaging with your neighborhood and with the constituents of the district that you're looking to represent. And so that means, showing up at the farmers market. That means showing up at public comment, hearings at your city council meeting or your county council meeting or your legislative office. It means making phone calls to your existing, elected representatives. What it looks like talking to business owners, people who have been around for a long time, and understanding what issues impact them from the government. And how I guess the point is you want to educate yourself and network yourself as much as possible. And so, yeah, and that's what I enjoy most about campaigning, to be quite frank with you. It's not begging for money. It's not begging for votes necessarily that I love. It's getting to know people. It's knocking on doors and asking them, how is the city working for you? How is the state working for you? What could be improved? What's confusing? One thing that I find is that a lot of people, even those who fancy themselves politically astute, don't understand the difference between city council, county council, or state government. And so I think, as a candidate, you need to be well versed in what the differences are. And then, I find it really enjoyable to be just a knowledge base for, the community and for my neighbors, and so to be able to answer questions or point them in the right direction when they've got an issue with the water department, or when, the neighbor across the street has left their couch on their front lawn for 5 weeks and they're pissed off, right? Like how do you engage with government in meaningful ways? And that's sort of what you learn as you're a candidate, as you're an elected official, and it's something that I would encourage everybody to start educating themselves on, if they're interested in at least exploring the possibility of running for public office one day.
Yeah. So when you ran for city council, were you knocking doors? Were you going door to door?
Yeah. I peppered this district probably 3 times, and so I knocked on doors, and I did it strategically. Of course, there's public information about voters exists, meaning I can pull a list of who's registered. That way, I'm not wasting my time knocking on doors of people who don't ever engage in politics. Right. You got to be really strategic with your time. And so, I went and I spoke to registered voters, and again, I asked them those questions that I mentioned a minute ago. How is the city working? What frustrations do you have? What excitements do you have? What do you want to see changed? And I'll tell you, most of the time, it's like just complaints about basic things, like the street light down the way that isn't working, or
interesting.
We really wish we had a stop sign right here, and we've emailed the city a dozen times and nothing happens. And those like basic frustrations that we all experience, right, with our communities. And, and so you learn a lot about your community and your neighborhood when you get out there and pound the pavement like that. But and it does, again, it takes a certain personality to engage with people constantly back to back like that. But if you've got it in you, I encourage you to run for office, because even if you come up short on the election and let's say you fail, you learn so much, not only about, again, your neighbors and your constituents in the community, but you learn about yourself. You learn where your vulnerabilities are. You learn how to public speak in meaningful ways. You learn how to formulate a response to a question you didn't quite all the nuts and bolts to, but just enough to be dangerous, right? Like you learn how to think on your feet in a new way. And so I think running for office, win or lose, is 100% worth it always.
I'm kind of curious, like when you're out there, you're canvassing, you're going door to door, and articles that were being, that would show up in the Tribune and everything. There was awareness about, the fact that you're gay, right? Yeah. But like it was kind of news to me when Dan was like, oh, we should get Derek Kitchen on the show, because he'd had conversations with you about your non-belief, and so I'm just wondering how, like, when these issues come up, how do you handle them as a candidate, as a politician,
As far as being a queer person or being an atheist or those sort of like hot button social issues. Do they come up? Do people bring up these issues, or have you just basically found that? I mean, I know it's a pretty liberal district that you're in, but like, how does the electorate tend to respond? Yeah, no. So at the city council level and at the legislative level as well, obviously city council, smaller district. The legislative level, I have a much larger district, represent about 120,000 people. So the issues are totally different. But that being said, my constituents never have brought up the fact that I'm a gay man or identify as a gay man. I think partly because it's just known. It's such a known fact about my personality and my character in the community is that I'm a gay person. That, I mean, it's just sort of it's bygone, right? It's already there, so nobody ever brings it up. And I'd be happy to talk to them if they ever did, of course, because that's just such a deeply ingrained part of who I am as a person that, that it shouldn't be an issue. But it does inform my experience with the law, historically speaking, right, around gay marriage. It does inform my understanding of what it's like to grow up in the suburbs of a pretty conservative, state, a very heavily religious Mormon community. So there are certain elements of my upbringing and my lived experience that are deeply informed by the fact that I'm a gay man, right? But
did you ever consider the Republican gay candidate thing of just not being gay?
No, I didn't consider that.
It's probably best. It's probably for the best. It doesn't seem to work out for people who try that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that one. But then
after the gay marriage thing, it'd probably be hard to.
It'd be hard to get away from that. Yeah. But the atheist thing is another sort of can of worms, because even those who are maybe not of the predominant religion around here, let's say Mormons, right? Let's say they're Catholic or Protestant or whatever it may be. There people still affiliate themselves frequently with an identified religion, and it's usually just because of that's how they've been brought up by their parents and various elements of their community, right? Being an atheist has never really been something that I put a lot of thought into. Once you decide and you sort of put enough, once you make the investment in brain power to think about these sort of existential questions and the meaning of life and all of that, right? Once you put in that power or that work and you're empowered with your own narrative, your own beliefs, it's sort of just a fact of the matter, right? And so I guess the atheist thing never really comes up. I will say it's sort of awkward when I'm in my legislative meetings and they like to open, the business with a prayer or something like that, right? Like that always makes me feel a little uncomfortable. Last year, my Senate leadership, they asked if I would like to recommend a constituent to come in and give a prayer. And it's like, no, but I don't want my constituents either to be left out of, the rotation. And so it's like, how can I do this in a way that meets my values, but also doesn't write somebody off simply because they have affiliated themselves with a more mainstream religion, right? And so,
What was your solution? What? Okay,
so I invited a friend to come give sort of more of a blessing. It was non-religious, non-God-oriented blessing for the legislature to conduct their work with transparency and ethics and reminding them that they're accountable to the constituents that elected them. And it was a non-God prayer.
Yeah. How did it go over? Okay. I mean, like,
and this is the thing is you don't make a splash about it. Yeah. You say like, who's going to come in for quote unquote prayer? Okay, I'll invite somebody for prayer, and then they come and then they just do it, and you don't make heads or tails of it for them. You just let them draw their own conclusions, and that's sort of like ninja politics, right?
Right. Well, and if you ever want, if the opportunity comes up again, I'd be happy to suggest some people who could do.
What about you, Dan?
Okay, if you want, I'll come in. I'll do a prayer.
You don't want that, Derek.
I mean,
what? I would do a perfectly lovely invocation.
But I think that question was really interesting, just because what do my constituents make of these sort of hot button issues, right?
Yeah.
And I will say that I don't broadcast my non-belief. It's not something I bring up in conversation. It doesn't matter to me. It should be out of politics anyway, right?
Right.
But one thing that was really interesting is our local newspaper about a year ago or so, they were just analyzing the religious makeup of the Utah legislature.
Sure.
And they published an article that talked about how over the last decade or so, the Utah legislature has gotten more Mormon.
Oh my God!
Affiliation.
Is that possible?
Just as the state itself, the demographics of the state have become more and more non-believing, and diverse, right? So the tone of the article, and I'll send you a link, was basically like, how is it that when a state like Utah is becoming more diverse, we're getting younger and less religious, how is it that simultaneously the legislature becomes more white, more male, and more Mormon? And that's part
issue.
of
That's part of why we started the initiative that we started, because that's the same trend that's happening nationwide. The country as a whole is getting increasingly non-secular. We've got people, probably somewhere in the 20 to 25% of our country do not affiliate with an organized religion. So the fact that we don't have a single, atheist senator or House of Representative on the national level in this country, there might be one or two who say they're humanist, but it's that this is non-representative anymore. So we need to be doing something as a group, as a we're not an organized group. Unfortunately, we're not like the Mormons, who are an organization with a lot of money and a lot of power, and they can just sort of push things through. But we're a group that has a voice that doesn't seem to be using it at this point.
Well, and I think that brings up just sort of an deeply ingrained design flaw with being an atheist generally. I mean, what leads you down that path typically is an attitude and sort of a way of life where you don't necessarily want to. You don't need this sort of group think or the group validation, right? So you've got that sort of structural flaw built in. So it's going to be hard to organize equal to what a religion might organize, because it's not part of our blood in that way.
Right. We're not joiners by nature. Yeah. Like that's a problem. But it's something that we need to work through, because we need, Derek, people like you out there, looking out for those of us who don't want the government to be controlled by Jesus or whatever. You know what I mean? And so are there, sort of to wrap things up, are there some words of encouragement or words that you can offer to anyone out there who wants to get more engaged, more involved? Tell us. I mean, I loved how inspired you seemed to have been when you first started to see some real success with this stuff. Tell people what they can look forward to with greater engagement in our political system.
Well, politics, like many volunteer jobs, is a thankless effort, and so you got to be prepared for people to be mad at you for no reason. You got to be prepared to spend time devoted to topics that you may or may not be interested in, because you're there to serve and you're there to make a difference in your community at the city level or the county level or the school board level, or in a legislative seat, and so just sort of be prepared for some work that you may or may not enjoy. However, being a part of your government, having a voice at the table of decision making, that truly impacts the day in and day out experience of yourself and your neighbors and the people that you love in your community, that is an incredibly fulfilling and enriching sort of sentiment to carry around. It's very prideful, right? You get to experience a great deal of joy from that role. I will say as well, you got to do it fearlessly. If you're going to get in, go, jump in, go, balls to the wall, so to speak, and don't be afraid, speak your truth. If you're frustrated about something, speak your frustration. If you're excited about something, be excited and share that joy. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, let me find out. Or, just sort of take that can-do attitude and do it and run. And like I said earlier, at the end of the day, win or lose, running for public office has been, in my two experiences, one of the probably at the top of the list of those experiences that have allowed me to personally grow. Emotionally grow. There's a lot of emotional growth. There's a lot of spiritual growth, and of course, you just learn. So that's growth as well. So I just think it's a good experience overall, and I'm a better person because of it. And so I would encourage you, if you've been thinking about it, or if it's something that you've had conversations with your friends or your spouse about, just decide to look at the next election and make a commitment to run.
I love it.
That's awesome.
You may be the only person I know who's an actual politician who I believe when they say politics made me a better person. It's a shocking revelation, but I actually believe it. So I love it. Thank you so much, Derek, for coming on the show. We really appreciate you.
Hey,
and we'll if you send us that link to that article, we'll put that on the show notes, and hopefully we're trying to get some resources together for people who want to run. I'm going to include you at least on some level as a resource that we are going to keep in our back pocket for people. But thank you so much for being a part of this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the conversation. Take care.
If you would like to heed the call and join up in the fight for more representation for our community, please write to us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com, and let us know about it.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and click on that like button.
And while you're on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group. We will let you in. Also find us on Twitter @TGIAtheist. And you know what? If you like what you hear on the show, you can sign up and be... If you like what you hear on the show, please support us. You can do so by going to thankgodimatheist.com, clicking on the support tab, following it on over to either PayPal or Patreon. We've got multiple ways for you to sign up, and it really, we are truly a listener-supported show. We do need your help, and
give us your money. Hey, thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music,
and a big thanks goes out to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all of you for lending your ears.
Bye-bye.